Hey everybody, I just want to talk about something. I was chatting with somebody and I brought up a powerful truth, and I mean a powerful truth, right? So as I was responding, I was getting these visions, and it reminded me of what a zookeeper told me. And that's pretty much, I'm not going to get every word, but the whole scenario is a great metaphor. So when the elephant is a child, a very baby elephant, they would get a strong stake for the baby elephant and tie a rope on that stake and tie a rope on the elephant's ankle. And as a child, it would try to run off, it would try to break it, it would try to do everything it possibly can to free itself, to the point that it gives up and realizes, or not realizes, but accepts, I'll never be free. I'm not strong enough. I'm not, you know, I'm never good enough, that whole, and accepts it. So as that elephant grows up, it's still on the same stake, just a different rope. But that elephant, as an adult elephant, can rip that stake out of the ground. But because as it was a child and it programmed and accept a false limited belief, that when that elephant got older and felt that rope around its ankle, reminding the elephant you can't free yourself, when in fact the elephant can free itself. It's like I don't like using the term ego because an ego is an illusion, but it's like that. The stake is the ego. The rope is the self-programming story that we tell ourselves. That's not true. Are you getting this? So the ego doesn't exist. Why Christ said, if you're in the Spirit, you have overcome the world. You are now in love. You remembered who you were. This process in life is to remind ourselves and to remember who we are. Like Wizard of Oz, Dorothy was laying on her bed the whole time, trapped in a dream. And the wizard or whatever said, click your heel 3 times. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. There's no place like home. Jesus went in the center of good and evil, the tree of judgment. The snake said, you will have eyes and you would see, duality. So they've fallen. I will give you skins. See the skin? Fallen. It's like here, well, down here's your naughty bits, like hell. Up here is heaven. When you're living in your lower chakras, the 4 horsemen, also the 4 lower chakras, that's Egypt, and people are a slave in Egypt. The heart is the Garden of Eden. Adam and Eve were here, and then when they ate the apple, they got duality, because it says, now they are aware They are naked. Remember the famous question, God can't, who said you were naked? So they were here, and when they went into judgment, they fell out of grace, and then they were here, and judgment happened again, and they were kicked out of the garden of heaven. Because you got to get to the garden to get to heaven. Jesus is the truth chakra, the light, the seat of the soul, the crown, the Father. A lot of people are still in Egypt. In Egypt, you live by the law. You'll feel like a slave. You'll feel like you're trapped and ensnared. But if you come to the realization, self-realization that you are spirit of Christ, you're free indeed. Because now you got into the garden opened up. When this opens up, this opens up. You got a third eye, and the Native Americans say, open the eye to your heart. In Eastern philosophy and Eastern stuff, they say, open up your third eye. In order to open your third eye, you got to open your eye of your heart, because as above is so below. And the two eyes, you got eye, cross, cross. You know how the Catholics do this? They do an upside down cross. Get your cross upright on the cornerstone. Peter was crucified upside down. In reflection, if I had a cross up, the cross on the ground would be upside down. So if you turn your cross upwards and make it a mere reflection, you know, in the scriptures it says, make your right hand your left and your left hand your right. When you turn this world upside down, you will come to the truth, and the truth will set you free, and you will have peace beyond understanding. So, that elephant was programmed. Now the elephants are grown up, and it still lives under this illusional snare of the personal history program. The Spirit is your teacher, as it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 13. We do not speak by the words of men's wisdom. We speak of the words of the Holy Ghost that teaches us all things. We're not supposed to be looking at people running outside themselves saying, listen, this teacher, they got tickled ears. Once you empty your cup and stop trying to fill your cup, and you just remain as an empty cup, water can form to anything, right? Be like water, as Bruce Lee said. Be like water. Water doesn't fight and resist, it just flows and adapts. But yeah, so the ego and all this other, that's all illusionary stuff. Whoa, that was a moth. But it's all illusionary stuff. That's a moth. The moth are at night. What are they always looking for? They go to the light source. So some of us are in this dark world attracting moths, well, butterflies that think they're moths, but we're really butterflies. We're just flying in darkness. The caterpillar is flesh. The butterfly is light as a feather. Why do angels fly? because they take everything lightly. They realize when you realize all this is an illusion, you could take stuff lightly. So, as a child, the elephant was programmed with the rope and stake, a piece of wood with a rope. It was programmed as a child. The stake and rope would be the stake would be the story. No, the rope would be the story that we convinced ourselves it was true. And the stake is the flesh. Because perfect love casts out all fears. And in Romans 8, it says the bondage of fear is through flesh. So if perfect love casts out all fears, then we're not under the bondage of fear. Because it says perfect love casts out all fears. And whoever lives in fear and torment is not made of that perfect love. Meaning, it still believes it's not made in perfect love. It lacks the true understanding. It doesn't remember. So the elephant has a rope. It's familiar because as it grows up, it's still on that little stake, but it's familiar. What is it familiar with? That rope, that feeling of that rope around its leg, reminding him he's not going to be free. He's not good enough. And he lives in a cage, trapped in its mind, believing a false story. As Paul said, who bewitched you? Who put the spell on you? Well, you allowed the outside world to influence your inside world, and people you really looked up to told you things, and you held them sacred. So they handed you poison, and you collected all this poison from people, believing what they said was true. So you gave your power to those sources. This is some deep stuff, man. So the elephant's tied to the rope. It's familiar with that rope. So as it gets older, that rope, that familiar spirit, that rope keeps reminding, keeps playing this story, the false story. Because if you live in perfect love, means you are in this present moment. You are getting downloads and you are speaking from the Spirit of Christ. Remember, Jesus Christ had to do all that stuff because it was the religion law, stone. Well, Jesus died on the cross and he was showing us how to live when he came out of that grave. In spirit, live in the Spirit of Christ. And if we live in the Spirit of Christ, it's a spiritual body Christ is the head, and a body's all in one. So if we have the mind of Christ, we have the heart of Christ. As above, so below. He says, when I'm seated with the Father, you're there with me. And when the Father looks at you, he doesn't see you smoking. He doesn't see none of that. He sees the Spirit of Christ in you. And the quote-unquote illusional trap, ego, is keeping you distracted from finding out who you truly are, because your quote-unquote illusional ego that does not exist. And if you believe the ego exists, then anything you believe that's not real and it's an illusion would make you delusional. In the end of times, they would be under a hard delusion. So it's like, people are like, I'm trying to figure this out. And God comes in the garden and says, why do you need to figure anything out? You're perfect, you're whole, you're complete. Just be and live in love. Every action you do, every deed you do, if it's aligned with love, it's real. If it's not aligned with love, it means nothing. So whatever's in line with love is real, and whatever's not in line with love is not real. And the flesh is part of this illusion, and it's not real. The only thing real is the spirit, and that spirit is love, perfect, whole, complete love. So we go back to the elephant, and the elephant just has to remember it's an elephant, and remember it's big now, and it can overcome that stake and rope, the flesh and the mind. Mind over matter. Your brain is matter. Mind is over matter. So when we get our mind right, a metanoia, a change, turn around. Well, if you turn around, you would be facing yourself and you walk back home. So, yeah, so the only thing, and patterns don't exist. If you can say, oh, that's a pattern, that's a habit, it doesn't exist now. You're just making a choice now because it was brought into your awareness like, oh, so if you continue doing something, you can't blame it on a habit and blame because what got them cast out of the garden? Judging and blaming outside themselves instead of taking full responsibility for your ways and your actions and forgiving yourself because they weren't aligned with love. This is what the Bible, I just read it. It's a living word, man. Do with what you want with this, but this is deep stuff. It's like performance doesn't exist. Nothing really exists. It's all an illusion. All that truly exists is love. Let that spark of God in you annihilate. Set it to a blaze. You will cast fire over the world and burn whatever's not real, and whatever is of God will remain. The truth, the way, the light. Now you have the love of truth. You now know the truth. You have now came to the truth. Now, the good you and bad you disappears because now you are made perfect in His image. Whose image? The Spirit of Christ, because God looks down, Father looks down and sees the Spirit of Christ. Your true image. Who are you? Children of the Beloved. Children of God, as it says in Romans 8 and in 1 John chapter 4, chapter 4, and there's other ones, 1 John chapter 2, 3, I believe, and chapter 1 says, beloved children of God. The only begotten Son is the Spirit of Jesus Christ. So if you live in the Spirit of Jesus Christ, you are now under a new adoption, meaning God just sees the Spirit of Christ in you. Anyways, some deep stuff, isn't it? Wow. So we speak of all this, so what is it coming to? It's pretty much saying nothing. Come to the nothingness. And that's where everything is. It makes me think of this diagram I saw. I'll put it on the screen right here. But there's these layers, if you notice the layers. And in the layers, if you look at the layers closely, all right, it says the red, temporary, the orange, temporary, the green or the yellow, temporary, the green, temporary, the blue, transpersonal, then the darker blue, the diamond body, then the magenta is the crystal body. But if you look under diamond body and under the crystal body, it says eternal. Anything that's temporary is not real. The truth is real. It's eternal. What's at the core? It's the Spirit. So if you look at the list right here, these top 3 are real. The rest of them are not real. It's part of the illusion. What are those 3 colors in the chakra? The blue is, the light blue is truth. Speaks with truth. Then you have the dark blue and then the magenta. Heaven. This is 3 layers, right? He made 3 kingdoms. You got 3 chakras here. Then you got 2 here. Wait. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the lowest chakras, the mid chakras, the Garden of Eden. A lot of people call the lower ones hell or Egypt, bondage. Alright, hell is a place of bondage. Egypt was a place of slavery, bondage. The garden, where everything lived in harmony. Because unconditional love's here, not here. Because unconditional love still, no, it's like duality. Because unconditional, conditional. We got to get to a state of being. It's a beyond unconditional love. It's the love of God. To get to the love of God, it's not unconditional or conditioned, because unconditional is still conditional. It has conditional. We got to get beyond that. Keep your eyes on things of heaven. Why people are, I look up and stuff, because heaven, not looking into the sky. When I look up and as I point up, here, heaven, the garden, the world of bondage, the animal, the true nature, the higher being, higher self. And when you can't see the Father but through the Christ, through the Spirit of Jesus Christ, through the Spirit of Christ, Christ consciousness, your conscience of Christ, Spirit Christ, the Spirit of Christ, not the Jesus Christ of the flesh. That's why I said the Bible has messages encoded into it. And if you have the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and allow the Spirit of truth to guide you, as it says in 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 13, the words of a wisely, this is not of the words of a wisely man teacheth. These are the words of the Holy Ghost that teacheth. John 15 or John 16, verse 13, I believe. The Spirit of truth will guide you to all truths. It will not boast in its name. So when people say, Josh is dead. If you see Christ's love in me, and I see Christ in you, we both have faced Jesus face to face, and we both have seen the Father. The only way you can see the Father is through the Spirit of Jesus Christ. This is what religion does not say. We are saved by grace. Because in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it describes God's love that says it holds no wrongs. It's slow to anger. It has self-control. It doesn't give up. It holds no wrongs. The ego is what, the imaginary ego is what, but if it's imaginary, it means it doesn't exist, so there's nothing there. So now it makes sense when they say, get out of your way. The only person that's in your way is you. Get out of your way. This stuff makes sense, doesn't it? It's like, who is holding the controller and who's moving? Well, if we're not the doers and we're just doing, the Spirit is the doer. Which battery do you have in you? Are you programmed to the illusional matrix world? Or are you actually programmed, ripped your cord out and programmed into the real reality? Nothing. It's not about you. It's about the Spirit of Christ. Ego doesn't exist. ego only exists in this world, and this world's an illusion. Nothing is real. When you find what is real, you'll be in content, you'll be in peace, you'll be full of joy and love. This is some deep stuff. It's been nothing's new under the sun. Well, in ancient texts, the sun was here. Nothing is new under the sun. It's right under your nose. It's been under your nose the whole time. Keep it simple, spirit. Be like a child. When a child is born, they don't have addictions. They know nothing. If you're like a child could enter into the kingdom very easily. It knows nothing. The rich man didn't want to give up his beliefs and his wisdom and everything he accumulated. Why, it would be easier for a camel to go through an eye of a needle than a rich man get into the gates of heaven. Gotta let it all go. This journey is reverse engineering. Instead of going outwards, you're going inwards, reverse engineering. This doesn't make sense, you guys. This stuff is crazy. It's like you've been doing it, and it makes sense why my dad said, son, you'll realize, and when you do look back, you're going to laugh. You're going to laugh at it all. Why is that? Because it wasn't real in the first place. Who has the controller? Who's controlling? And who's doing? Like a remote control car. Who's controlling the vessel? You or the spirit of divine?